What's going on, y'all? Yesterday we had the NBA draft lottery, which means that we finally have the set NBA draft order. And with that comes new NBA mock drafts that I have to deep dive into and talk about. So let's get into it. But right before we do, oh, y'all thought I was just going to let you get away with it. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, comment, do all those things. I've responded to every comment on my YouTube channel so far, and I'm going to keep on doing it. But anyway, let's talk about some NBA basketball. Shout out Bleacher Report as always for throwing together these mock drafts for us to talk about. It's just good to help talk about the prospects and everything and what we think is going to happen in this. And can I just first of all, throw out a congratulations to all Atlanta Hawks fans. Hopefully you guys don't pick a quarterback. I know Shefty already made the joke about it. And I'm so sorry, Detroit Piston fans. I'm sorry. The NBA draft lottery is a good thing at the end of the day. It is, and it's for teams like you guys. You didn't put together a good enough team to be competitive this year, and you got punished for it by the basketball gods. But I'm sorry for you fans. You guys don't deserve that. But anyway, with the first overall pick, yep, it's still Alex Sarr. And this doesn't surprise me at all, and I don't think we need to talk in too much depth about Alex Sarr in this situation. This is more so, like, we know what we're getting with Alex Sarr, most likely. You're going to get a very good defender that can step out and guard people in the perimeter. He's going to be an elite defensive player. He's shown a little bit of range. That's why they compare him to like a Jaren Jackson Jr. Just looks like he's going to be a really good athlete. We did a whole video on him. You should go check it out. I think Alex Sarr is probably the best prospect in the class. I think he's the most surefire thing to come in and just be a starter right away. He's going to make your team better right away. I think there's like 2 or 3 guys probably like that in the class, in my opinion. And yes, this is a weak NBA draft class. We know that. I don't know if there's superstar potential here with Alex Sarr. I'd err probably on the side of no. There's probably other guys in the class that have other star potential. But let's talk about what this means for the Atlanta Hawks. I see this as the step to something new, and I think this is going to give them all the permission in the world to blow things up. I think that they're really going to try to move Trae Young this summer, maybe even DeJounte Murray as well. Kind of similar to what we've done in our little Atlanta Hawks rebuild series. Again, another plug. Look at that. I'm doing great today with those. But I could see them moving Trae Young and maybe even a DeJounte Murray and saying, like, okay, we're going to acquire a bunch of assets, and Alex Sarr is step 1 in our rebuild, already done. Is he going to be our star player? No, and he's not going to be good enough to help us win a ton of games next year. So we can kind of bottom out for next season, try to get another top pick and a guy that can come in and complement Alex Sarr. More so, a guy that Alex Sarr could complement, right? Because I think Alex Sarr is going to be a very nice player in the NBA. I don't think he's a superstar by any means, but you get somebody in the draft next year, maybe a Cooper Flagg, right? Maybe a Dylan Harper, an Ace Bailey, one of those guys like really starts to impress us or something like that, right? And then you go get one of those guys, and now you already have somebody in Alex Sarr to kind of build around, kind of like what the Grizzlies did with Jaren Jackson Jr. and Ja Morant, right? So that's kind of how I look at the situation, and I think that it's kind of going to roll out. But we like Alex Sarr as a prospect. I would find it hard to believe he doesn't go number 1. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm seeing there. With the second pick, Zachary Rissache. Yeah, so we did a video on him as well. I'm going to try to do a lot of videos on these guys. Wizards, they just need talent. Rissache is probably the next best player, and I'm going to make an argument here. Donovan Clingan, I wouldn't be mad at them for taking him with the second pick, because I think Donovan Clingan is the next best option for being a for sure NBA starter in this league. I think that those two are for sure like starter NBA centers that are going to come in and they're going to make your defense instantly a lot better as soon as they step on the court. Probably Clingan even more so than Sarr, but Sarr's got a little more like offensive potential in the terms of scoring. I think Clingan's got good like not ball handling, but like he could be a hub at times. But anyway, we're talking about Rissache. They always compare him to like Harrison Barnes in this. Did they compare him to Harrison Barnes? Yeah, they compared it. I don't see it all. I see Michael Porter Jr., but a little more athletic, and that's what I see. So I love the shooting form with him. I think he's great. I think he's still growing into his body athletically. I think there's a lot of potential there and like what you could get out of this guy. I think you could get a really elite spot up shooter, kind of like Michael Porter Jr., but be a little more mobile. Like some of the times where we see him not take off or something like that, it just looks like his body isn't ready yet. And he's young, and like that happens with guys at this age. Like I promise you, I've coached so many freshmen in college basketball at like the D1 level and other levels that I'm like, yeah, their bodies aren't ready yet. Like they're such big people. It takes a little bit to get that coordination down. It doesn't always come that naturally. So I think Rissache is like, he's probably my second or third favorite prospect in this draft. I think he can come in and be a starter for sure, and I think he can make an instant impact. The Wizards need anything they can get right now. I don't know if Reece is probably like the most important position for them. Like I said, I think Klingon might be a better one, but I'm not going to be mad at them for taking him either because he probably is my third favorite prospect in here. So I'm not mad at them at all if they make this pick. Next one, I feel like this is where it's going to get weird. Yep, this is where it starts to get weird. Okay, in the last mock draft I did, I had a lot of people commenting about like the Reed Shepherd going 3 to Houston thing because I don't think it makes sense. So it should be known that I'm just not very high on Reed Shepherd to begin with. I'm concerned about his ability to play like a specific NBA position. What position does he play? That worries me because like he's the size of a point guard, right? He's 6'3" and he's very small. 187 pounds seems a little generous, honestly. But anyway, I don't think he's got point guard level skills. I don't think he's a good enough ball handler. I don't think he's quick enough to do it. I think he's got some interesting athletic capabilities. Like he floats in the air a little bit longer. I think he's a smart passer. Things like that. He makes winning plays. Obviously an elite shooter. Like we all saw that. Very, very good shooter. His form needed like a tweak or two in my opinion, but the results don't lie. You're not going to tweak it if he's hitting it, right? And guys adjust their forms all the time. So that's a whole nother thing. But for a guy that I don't think he has the skills to play NBA point guard, especially defensively, I don't think he can play that position. That worries me. But then you go, okay, the Houston Rockets, Amin Thompson can go play point guard then, and then he's going to play the 2. I'm like, so you're going to have like Jalen Green play the 3 or something then? And I know he probably doesn't start right away. He comes off the bench, and he's just a shooter off the bench. I'm like, okay, so he's guarding 2s? Like, NBA point guards and shooting guards are a lot bigger than they used to be, man. A lot stronger, and like, I worry about him on the defensive end. I'm sure he can come off floppy screens and like pin down actions all day and hit 3s, and that's cool because the Rockets need some shooting on the team, especially with Amin Thompson on the team. But like with the 3rd overall pick, you're gonna pick a guy that probably can't play a ton of NBA defense. And don't come at me in the comments like his block percentage was really good. You're not a smart person. You're not. Like that's just a statistic. Like yes, he blocked shots. That's cool. NBA guys aren't going to let him block these shots. I promise it's just not going to happen. It just won't. But do I think Reed Shepherd has a role in the NBA? Yes. I'm just not picking him with anything higher than like the 8th pick or something like, and I don't know who's picking 8. I think it's the Spurs even, so I'm not taking him with that pick either. But I don't think it's worth it because I don't see what he grows into. He eventually grows into like a point guard, maybe, and even then, like he still probably struggles defensively a little bit. I don't know. It seems odd to me. I'm not picking this, but I'm sure the Rockets are going to explore this trade as well because it just doesn't make sense for them to add another young player, right? So I guess we'll see there. 4th pick, this is where it gets interesting. Who's it going to be? Oh, Nikola Topic to the Spurs. Okay, we all know the Spurs need a point guard, right? I'm going to make the argument, just going to make the argument. If the point guard isn't here, I think there's other avenues you can explore. I'm not saying that it doesn't make sense. I'm just saying there's other avenues. And that's what's so complicated about this draft, right? I think you're going to see a lot of teams being like, okay, there's so many question marks and there's not very high ceilings here. Like, do we just either, 1, do we trade the pick for teams that are willing to take that risk? Or 2, do we see teams take more so like, okay, this guy's probably not going to have a high ceiling, but I at least know that he can play some minutes for me next year? With the 4th pick, probably not, but I think that's just going to be a question that gets asked at points. But anyway, Nikola Topic, I watched the one game that he like played or whatever. I don't know if he's played since. I just haven't seen any film on it. And I'm confused to say the least by like his movement, his shooting form. We know he has shooting questions. I know he made 2 3s in the game. In the film that I'd seen prior, he is really good at attacking the hoop. He's got great passing vision. He's got great size. He looks built and ready for the NBA, right? Looks like he could play defense and be a nice passer, kind of Josh Giddey type in that sense. But his shooting form like scared me a little bit. I was kind of like, ooh, like I don't like that. It's not like unfixable. I've seen way worse, but I'm like, ooh, I don't like that, right? And some of his body movements, like athletically, just kind of concerned me a little bit. So I need to see a lot more though. So I'm probably just have a negative taste in my mouth right now, but I like the smarts out of him. And obviously he's been playing pro ball already. And that's always a huge plus. A lot of these foreign guys are coming into the NBA a lot more ready than the college guys nowadays. And that's just the adjustment that's been made overseas. But yes, the Spurs, and they're going to have another lottery pick. So I'm curious what they do with it in this mock draft. But would I fault them for taking him? No. I'm going to have concerns though. And I do just want to note, I don't think it'd be the worst thing in the world to come back with Trae Jones again. And I don't want to see you guys making Trae Young trade comparisons. I don't think that trade makes any sort of sense. I don't think he fits that system. And I don't know why like that would be the solution. I just don't. Like, don't try to build a whole team in a single offseason. Like Wemby just had his rookie season. It's going to take a while to build a team, man. It just does. Like the Denver Nuggets didn't become the Denver Nuggets in a season, right? So just be patient with it. I don't know if Topic is the answer, but I'm not mad if y'all want to just run it back with Trey Jones. Trey Jones is a nice point guard. What do we got next? Matas Buzelis. Man, I can't with this draft class, man. This is taking me back to the Giannis draft class. And, like, yes, that whole draft class was pretty garbage. We look back at it, but there's always a Giannis somewhere in there. I'm not saying Buzelis is that guy. I have such a hard time getting excited about a lot of these guys because Buzelis is another guy that I'm just like, I don't want to draft him, personally. I understand, like, the 6'10", he can shoot, he can move a little bit. Like, a lot of these guys are coming out, but extremely slight frame. I don't see him filling in all that great either. He's 6'8", 209, but he's only 6'8". I feel like he's shrinking in these, like, mock drafts or whatever, and that concerns me itself, man. I need official measurements on things, but I'm concerned about, like, his ball handling. I don't think his ball handling is very good at all. And this is something you're starting to see out of, like, a lot of these kids that are coming up through the U.S., like, basketball system is, like, these kids don't have, like, a lot of these skills, whether it's their wings that can't shoot or they're, like, spacing bigs because all bigs just want to do is step out and hit the three nowadays that, like, they can't dribble or anything. And so it's like, okay, yeah, that's interesting, but you're very limited offensively then, and usually they have these slight frames, and I'm like, who's Buzelis going to guard? Like, I don't know who he's going to guard. Like, he doesn't look like he can guard NBA wings right now. I don't think he's coordinated enough. I don't think he's strong enough, and he doesn't have to come in and start right away for the Detroit Pistons, but I understand the logic. They're like, okay, we need a 4, and he needs to be able to shoot because we want to play Asar Thompson. I understand that. That makes some sense to me. I'd just trade the pick and try to find a veteran that can do it or something. Or you just got to start Fontecchio this year, right? Like, I don't think that Buzelis is the answer. I think that he really is like a Hito Turkoglu, like he can step out and hit it, but that's kind of it. And that just doesn't seem like enough for the 5th overall pick for me. So, I don't know. That's just my thoughts on it. I'm so sorry, Detroit Pistons. It hasn't worked out well for you, has it? All right, what are we on? The 6th pick? Stephon Castle. Yeah, no, that makes some logical sense. I would say that makes actually a lot of logical sense to me, Stephon Castle. And I think that Stephon Castle is somebody that might rise in the ranks a little bit once they kind of get him, like, into, like, practice gyms and stuff like that. But here's another example, though, of some of the modern, like, American players that are coming up in things. Because Stephon Castle, NBA build, looks like an NBA player, right? Like 6'6", can play the 1, 2, or 3 because he's got good ball handling skills. He can pass well. He's strong. He's a really, really good defender, right? Can't shoot the ball to save his life. And that's okay. Like, if he had everything down, then he'd be the number 1 pick, right? Like, and that's just the case. Everybody's got their weaknesses. That's the thing with every prospect, right? But that's going to be Stephon Castle's thing. But the thing is, if he goes 6 to Charlotte, you're playing with, hopefully, LaMelo Ball if he ever plays again, and you're playing with Brandon Miller at the 3. You throw Stephon Castle in at the 2. Now, all of a sudden, you have 3 guys that can put the ball on the floor if needed, and you have 2 really elite, hopefully, like, ball handler passing type guys that have a lot of size at the point guard and shooting guard between LaMelo and Castle. You can do a lot with an offense there, a lot. You have a run, jump, and dunk defensive center in Mark Williams. Maybe Miles Bridges comes back. You've got an interesting team at the very, very least. Obviously, LaMelo Ball, Christ, needs to be healthy. And Brandon Miller, obviously, we hope that he continues to take a big leap. He was phenomenal in this first rookie season. But I think Castle's a nice complementing piece to them, and I'd very much like to see him end up on that team. Well, let me rephrase. There's a reason that the UConn coach always says, like, hey, yeah, I really try to tell my players, like, if they're ready for the NBA or not, and I don't want to see them end up in certain organizations. Spoiler alert, he's talking about Washington and Charlotte. I promise you, they're the 2 worst run organizations in the NBA. Trust me, I know. But anyway, do I want to see him there? No, but from, like, a basketball purist point of view, I want to see it. So, yeah, that's what we're hoping for. But I know the Charlotte Hornets are hiring new people right now, so maybe they'll start to figure it out. They never really do, but I can hope. Next pick, this has to be Klingon, right? Yep, Portland Trailblazers, Donovan Klingon. I did this in my ideal offseason thing. I said they need to take Klingon with that pick, and I hope he's available, and I think he was going to be available. I think that makes a ton of sense for them. Here's why. You need to do, with this offseason, Portland Trailblazers, whatever you can do to help Scoot Henderson out. You took him with the 3rd pick. He's a high potential, high skill player. I hate when these teams take these guys and they don't do whatever it takes to kind of give him the fair shot. It's like, if any of you guys watch football, it's like Justin Fields in Chicago. Like, he just got the rawest deal ever. Like, there was no shot of him succeeding. They did nothing to help the guy out. And this is kind of what I'm worried about with Portland. Because, one, they've never been great at building a team in itself. And Portland Trailblazers fans, don't come at me and say that. You can't say it. They have never been good at putting together a good team. They just haven't. But anyway, so you take Klingon. Klingon is a much better fit next to Scoot Henderson, who is so good in the pick and roll and so good in handoff actions and things like that. And those were the two things we saw that he was actually good at in his rookie season, and you need him to play there. You don't need DeAndre Ayton. That's just going to do these stupid little short rolls and play at like the free throw line in the nail and clog the paint so Scoot Henderson can't do anything, because once Ayton has the ball at the free throw line, what is Scoot Henderson supposed to do? He's not a great shooter. So give him somebody that can run a pick and roll with him and can block shots and play good defense, be a good rebounder. Like, maybe you still have to keep Ayton this year, but after that, like, I'm pretty confident Klingon can come in and start. And maybe this even gives you the ability to move Ayton if somebody wants him. I just think he's a much better fit next to Scoot Henderson. Find a couple shooters. I think you got a good thing. I like Klingon. Alrighty, who even has the 7th overall pick? Wait. Oh, I just did 7. Okay, I'm on 8 now. Now I know. I know where I'm at. Everybody calm down. It's Monday. All right, so the San Antonio Spurs with the 2nd pick of their lottery picks. Awesome timing for them to have this, even though it's not a great class, an opportunity to do some cool things with it. Taking the other point guard, Rob Dillingham. So you guys might criticize that selection. You're like, oh, 2 point guards. Well, it's like, look, you can argue this a little bit, because you're like, okay, we're not so sure about any of the guys in this class, so let's just take 2 point guards. One of them has to work out, right? At least that's the hope, and they kind of do cover different aspects of each other, right? Like, if there's anybody that's going to be a nice, like, shot-creating player in this draft class, it's probably Rob Dillingham, right? And that's where he excels. You question the shot selection and the turnovers and stuff at times. Sometimes the efficiency falls off, but he's played without the basketball before he's played with it. You've seen a lot of different things out of him offensively, and he just kind of covers some of the blind spots that Topic has, and Topic covers some of the blind spots that Dillingham has. So I could totally see it. I don't hate it by any means. I don't know who else I would take. Like, I don't think any of the wings or anything necessarily make a ton of sense for them right now. I would say point guard is probably the thing that you want to address right now. So I wouldn't fault them at all for this. As far as like Dillingham, who do they compare him to? Darius Garland. Yeah, I could see that. Small, shifty guard. Again, worry about him a little bit defensively and some of the shots that he takes. But otherwise, as far as potential, he's one of the guys that has a little bit more potential. Next pick, we're on to the 9th pick now. Memphis Grizzlies, Ron Holland. Yeah, no, they're going to take a wing almost certainly with this. Somebody to pair with Desmond Bane and Ja Morant. So it's probably going to be him or Cody Williams, right? I think both of them kind of have a similar story to tell, where it's like, you look at those two guys and you go, okay, I can see an NBA player with them. Ron Holland probably more so than Cody Williams, because you're like, wow, he looks really athletic already, like really big and strong, very confident, like in transition and things like that. But I have to tell you, he has some of the like worst basketball instincts I've seen in a prospect in a little bit. Like, he doesn't look like he reads passing lanes well. Like, he's just attacking the rim, like not even keeping his head up. Like, his handle looks a little bit weak at times, but like physically he looks like an NBA player, right? And so that's where I think people get a little distracted with him. But like, his shooting just like isn't that good. Like I said, his decision making is pretty porous, honestly, in like all the film that I've watched. So that's where I get concerned about him. You take the pressure off him by already having some pretty good players around him. I'd be curious to see what happens, right, in Memphis. So I'm not going to hate them for that pick. I think Cody Williams makes maybe a little more sense to them, but Ron Holland might have a higher ceiling. So that's just kind of what you have to weigh if you're a Grizzlies fan. Next up, Utah Jazz, Dalton Connect. Okay, yeah, no. Do I make a white guy joke going to Utah? Do they have enough of those? I've pissed off a couple people in the comments with that before, so I just always like to drop it in there. So feel free to leave me a comment to boost the algorithm. Wally Szczerbiak comparison. I actually kind of like that comparison, except he's much more athletic than Wally Szczerbiak was. But the Utah Jazz need a wing as well. Primarily a guy that can shoot on the wing and probably come in and play right away. So I understand this, right? Because Keontae George is a young point guard, and Colin Sexton was a nice player for them this year. Doesn't bring you a ton of size. He's 6'6". He is strong, so that's nice. He has pretty good athleticism. Like, his handle is solid, to say the least. He can get to the rim and finish over people. Decent vertical. I like Dalton Connect. I think this is one of those guys that you might even see like rise a little bit more in the draft because of what I was talking about before, because you're like, okay, I know if I take him, he's at least like an NBA player, right? And he's probably not going to fizzle out of the NBA. This guy's going to have a role forever because he's such an elite shooter at 6'6". Every team needs a guy like him, and he's got good athleticism. He's strong. He's got some takeover ability. I think that's an awesome trait to have, and I could totally see him fitting on the Jazz because they just need some shooting and some wing play more than anything right now. So I'm not mad at that pick whatsoever. I think it makes a lot of sense for them. It's just just a guy to come in and be solid right away, which is where the Utah Jazz want to be. I just did the whole ideal offseason for them, right? And they're like, we don't really want to tear things down because that's not how the Utah Jazz do it, and that's awesome. I think that's really cool. But also, they're like, we still want to like build to the draft and stuff, and they want to build it their way. And this is a guy that can help them remain competitive while still bringing in some youth. So I like it. Next guy, my Chicago Bulls, Cody Williams. I'd be really happy with this pick because I need somebody to like root for on this Bulls team. Like I need somebody that has some potential. Like Patrick Williams is still 22 years old, and maybe they figure it out. But as long as Levine and DeRozan and Vucevic are on the team, he's never going to get the chance to shoot. And maybe he doesn't want to shoot, but I don't know. But Cody Williams, very interesting prospect, kind of like Patrick Williams, where you're like, okay, this guy's a pretty good defender. He's shown the ability to run the pick and roll and ball handle a little bit. He's got great size. He's like 6'9" already. He's got a good basketball family, right? J-Dub's doing some really good things for them, for the Thunder in the NBA right now. But like, there's some interesting like athleticism going on. Maybe still growing into his body, still learning basketball instincts. But there's a lot of potential there in the passing and the ball handling at 6'9". It's kind of hard to find those guys. So I like the potential of a Cody Williams, right? He's a big potential guy in this draft. Because like it's not there like right now, but you can understand a progression that would take place. And so for the Bulls to take someone like that, I'd be thrilled for it. I think they could use some help on the wing, adding some size there. And also, we just need a guy to root for that we can develop, man. We need somebody. Next up, Oklahoma City Thunder, Tyler Smith. I love this. I'm so glad that they think Tyler Smith is going to jump up in the draft boards, because I do think that this is going to happen. I think he's one of the guys that's kind of been lurking around like the 20s in the drafts before, and you guys have heard me say it before. I'm like, this guy is actually a much better prospect than you think he is, and like I couldn't quite tell you why. I think it's just because like he looks very coordinated. He looks very sure of his game. He's shown the ability to shoot. For those of you that don't know, he's like a 6'11" like power forward that can maybe play the 3, because he's shown a little bit of ball handling skills and he's pretty good defensively. It's just he's playing for the Ignite, and he's got like a weird situation there just in like how much they play him and things like that. But I personally think he's one of the higher upside picks in the draft and looks almost more like a complete prospect. I think it's just because like his exposure was pretty small this year that we're not seeing it. So I feel like once they get him in training camp and they go, wow, this guy's pretty big and moves pretty well, like it might be worth taking him. And oh man, if you take him with the Thunder, right? Like the Thunder have every pick in the world and they can afford to like take a swing on somebody. Like, this is a position of need. It adds some size to them. It adds another big on their team and potentially another guy that can space and drive and kick in their offense. That'd be perfect. I really, really hope he gets drafted here. I really hope he does, because they also just do such a good job with their prospects, right? And I want to see Tyler Smith work out, because I've been saying it all season that he's going to be good. Next up, Sacramento Kings, Jared McCain. Interesting. So are we giving up on Davion Mitchell? Is that kind of the idea? What do they have to say about this? He's become one of the draft's most convincing shot makers. I would say off the catch and shoot. Yeah, I wouldn't say that off the dribble. Yeah, like his size and athletic limitations do raise questions. Like off the dribble, he gets like no separation from people. Like ways to compensate with crafty ball. I wouldn't call it that crafty in all honesty. Like I think he's got a couple nice shots that he can go to and everything. I think as a catch and shoot player, he's like actually really, really good. I would agree. He's one of the best catch and shoot players in the league. I think he's a great competitor and things like that. He's kind of in the Reed Shepherd thing where I'm like, is he skilled enough to be a point guard? Because I don't think he can create his own shot at the NBA level. I just don't think that he's going to be able to with his frame and his athletic abilities that he currently possesses. But at the same time, do you add him to a team like the Kings because you can throw him next to a De'Aaron Fox or something, and he can just be another guy to be out there and be a floor spacer for him, but I don't really know if that's worth it, and you presumably are bringing Malik Monk back, and it's like you could never play those two together. It just wouldn't make any sense. So I don't know. I personally I don't know what to do with Jared McCain. I was on the team that said stay in college, get your NIL as much as possible. I don't really think that you're an NBA player, and you can call me a hater all you want. Like, I have nothing against the guy, and I hope he succeeds in the NBA, but I'm like, I would collect all the NIL possible, just live it up at Duke or whatever. Like, I know you have to go to class and everything like that, but I don't know. I think that it's totally fine, and that's what I would have done. I'm not sure what to do with Jared McCain personally as a prospect. Last lottery pick, Portland Trailblazers' second pick, Jacoby Walter. Interesting. I'm not sure that that's the guy I would have gone after, and here's why. So Jacoby Walter is an interesting prospect. He's kind of got this build and this makeup that we've seen come into the NBA a little bit as of late. These like kind of smaller combo guards that are big time like shot creators and stuff, kind of unlike a Reed Shepherd or a Jared McCain. Like, these guys are more so the creators and they take all the shots. And he's had games where he's completely filled it up, and he's had games where he has been ice cold. And I just don't know what to do with these guys. They are coming into the NBA more frequently now, and they're finding a little bit of success in these combo guard roles, but it's risky, right? And like, I don't know, is he just going to play off of Scoot Henderson? I kind of just want to get some actual wing defender types on here, so I don't know exactly who that would be. Like, I think immediately like a Terrence Shannon Jr. makes more sense, but we'll talk about Terrence Shannon Jr. and everything in a little bit. But I don't love this pick. I just want somebody a little more for sure around Scoot. I know that there's some potential here, and he's a nice athlete, but I don't know. I just don't know what to do with Jacoby Walter, and this feels like a stretch to take him at 14, so not a fan of it. Okay, so that's the lottery. I'm going to go through and just see what other picks are there. I'm going to guess, what is this, 15? Oh, I was going to guess I scrolled too far. I was going to guess it was Collier. I'm just going to address like a couple other guys that I want to talk about quick. I can already guarantee there's nobody in the second round I want to talk about, so we're not even going to worry about that. We're just going to talk about first round here. But let's talk about Collier again. Nice defensive player, nice ball handler, very strong, very interesting build, like the athletic, strong, big point guard, 6'5", 210, like 19-year-old. Incredibly interesting. Where you lose me is the fact that he both can't shoot and can't take care of the basketball at the college level. You throw him on the Miami Heat, you know what? Anything can happen. Like, they could totally figure out what to do with his raw talent and make it work. I'd support this pick 100%. They probably need more point guards on the team anyway, guys that can actually handle the ball. Yes, I'm going to be scared of him as a prospect because of that, but man, he's got some incredible physical tools. Like, his ability to go off the dribble, finish like through people, incredibly impressive. I do think he makes some really smart passes, but if you can't read the college game, I'm very concerned about your ability to read the NBA game, because the Miami Heat, I know because I studied their offense and install it on other teams like as part of my job. And it's not like a simple thing to learn. And if you can't figure out USC basketball, which is like complete nonsense, let me mind you, that's why y'all shouldn't judge Bronny James or whatever. I do think Bronny James is a good prospect. And I just saw the report saying NBA scouts are like, this guy's like actually a pretty good player. And that's what I'm trying to tell you guys. Like, he's actually a pretty good basketball player. But anyway, I'm worried about Collier. The Heat is probably the best place he can end up, though. Ooh, the Sixers taking Kel Ware. Ooh, I'd like to see Kel Ware go a little bit higher in the draft. Where would I like to see him go? They already took Klingon in this, so he doesn't need to go there. Sacramento Kings? Like, I could see that a little bit. OKC, I could see. Chicago, maybe. It's hard to say where he should go, maybe. So maybe he did end up in the right spot. But anyway, Kel Ware is somebody that I think, again, once people get him on the court, they're going to be a little bit higher on him. A little bit more of a high ceiling prospect. Not like all-star level, but I think that has the potential to be a starter in the NBA. There's a lot of decent bigs in this draft. Like, none that are going to, like, knock your socks off completely. Like, they're going to be like Jokic, but I think, like, Klingon, Sarr, and then this guy Ware, maybe even Missy at some point when we talk about him, could be interesting prospects to talk about. He's shown the ability to step outside and hit threes. He's very athletic. He can play in the dunker spot. He can play defense. Those three things right there make him a very elite prospect. I think he'd end up best in Orlando because I think they'd develop him into a nice complementary piece to Paolo Banchero. But I could totally see him here. Maybe they just want a new backup center and they want to trade B-Ball Paul. Could totally see it. But, you know, I like Kel Ware. Like, I at least, if I was still like a player development dude, I would get him into camp and I'd be like, yeah, no, I can work with this. We can do something with this guy here. So that's how I feel about him. Terrence Shannon Jr. Okay. We're just going to put it out there right now. Obviously, the allegations and everything, his court trials happening. Not going to speculate where that's going to go whatsoever. We wish all the best to anybody that's been negatively affected by it whatsoever. That's my PR person talking, I guess, in me. I've had a lot of PR training from my basketball experience. But anyway, obviously, we hope that whatever happens in his situation is taken care of. If he did something bad, pays a consequence. If he didn't, then comes to the NBA. As far as him just as a basketball prospect, I really, really like him. I think that I would take him with like a top 10 pick. In all honesty, I would take him over like a Ron Holland because I think he already has the skills. I think he has the frame, the build to be an instant impact NBA player. And I think the thing holding him back is the allegations right now. And so we'll see what happens with that. But shot creation, defense, elite, like can handle the ball. He's got multiple counter moves already, which is rare to see out of someone coming out of college. I really, really like his game. Obviously, he's a really good athlete too. So if he ended up on New Orleans, I think they got enough of these guys, in all honesty. I don't necessarily need him there, but depending on what's all happening, I think as far as him as a prospect, I'd take him higher than 17. I'm going to skip over Devin Carter and Filipowski. I've kind of beat those drums to death. I think they could be interesting role players. Like Devin Carter could be a guy that surprises us and plays just very solid basketball right out the gate. I'm not very high on Filipowski. I'm not surprised he continues to drop. Whenever I've watched the film on him and I've watched with other NBA scouts, we just all kind of go like, I don't know. Like, I could see it being interesting at some point, and 7 feet and the potential to shoot is cool, but like, I don't necessarily know. Tristan Da Silva, not too high on him either. Sal Yoon, I haven't really watched a ton of film on him. I don't even know if I pronounced the name right. I just know that like every other game is like, it's like a roller coaster with this guy. Like he plays really, really good and then really, really bad. And so he's just another one of these French dudes that are coming in. They're producing a lot of talent right now. That's awesome. He's a really interesting physical prospect, really good athleticism. I'm going to need to see more film on him before I give you guys a really good representation of him. And I plan on watching it at some point. Yaviz Missy, I think a great value pick. I think Phoenix at 22 is absolutely awesome as a pick for this guy, because I just think he's going to be able to come in and block shots, get rebounds, be tall and athletic right away, and just play around the big three. I think Phoenix at 22 is absolutely perfect for him. I think that he'll be a nice backup center in the NBA with a ceiling of being a starting center. Like, he does a lot of things that like a Mark Williams does. So he wasn't quite as productive at Baylor as Mark Williams was when he was in college, but I totally see the talent, and I'd love to see him at 22. Anybody else interesting? Zach Edey to Milwaukee, fully support it. There's people that just comment like, Zach Edey sucks. That's not a comment. Leave me like an actual statement with some like intelligence behind it, people. But anyway, I'm comfortable taking Zach Edey in like the early 20s is probably the highest I'd pick him. If it's the Milwaukee Bucks at 23, makes all the sense in the world. It gives them a much different option to look at, a guy that can play some defense for them and just be really big and get rebounds, play around all the other great players. Absolutely love the fit. And I should explain the reason I feel good about moving him up in like the draft board and everything is because like I've seen such a difference in him athletically from like his junior to senior year. So just wanted to throw that out there. I think that leaves a little more room for like offensive capability out there. Kaishan George, very interesting physical prospect because like he's big and he shot really well at Miami and he is pretty physically gifted. But then, like, he, like, can't finish anywhere outside of the three-point line, and so I'm kind of, like, whatever on him. Harrison Ingram, just not a huge fan as a prospect. I don't know what he, like, does well, and this is why, like, the draft class kind of starts to fall apart around this time. Just not a huge fan of it. Diet, not too sure on him, not too sure on these guys, and yeah, this is where it starts to lose me. Yeah, it's just none of these names just interest me as even like potential guys. I've talked about some of them before, so go watch some of my previous videos if you want to hear me talk about like 1 or 2 second round sleepers that I'm like a little bit curious about. But even then, like I'm sure somebody's going to surprise us. They always do. We always miss somebody and somebody fits in with the team perfectly and it goes great. And we root for those guys. Like we want to see that happen. But for the time being, shout out Atlanta Hawks. I don't think they trade the pick. I would trade Trae Young and try to rebuild from here. I don't think winning with Trae Young is a thing. I just personally don't. I'd love to see him get traded to like the New Orleans Pelicans. I think that would be a really interesting fit or whatever. So that's what I'd like to see personally. But hey, that's just me. And hey, thanks so much for watching, you guys. I really appreciate it. And we'll talk to you guys later.